Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
President Trump's executive order to end birthright citizenship is facing yet another challenge. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A federal judge in New Hampshire issued a ruling prohibiting the order from taking effect anywhere in the U.S. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne breaks down what's next.
The ruling from federal judge Joseph LaPlante doesn't take effect immediately. He granted a 7-day stay for the government to appeal. This comes in a class action lawsuit filed by the ACLU on behalf of a pregnant woman, 2 parents, and their infants.
In focusing on babies, a judge LaPlante was focusing on those individuals who are most directly and substantially affected by the birthright citizenship order.
Dan Eaton is a legal analyst from San Diego. He says the injunction is no surprise, given the multiple lawsuits filed against President Trump's executive order and a Supreme Court ruling last month.
What the Supreme Court held in its recent landmark ruling was that federal district judges couldn't issue what are called universal injunctions that extend beyond the people who brought the lawsuit.
Eaton says the cure for that is a class action lawsuit.
This is one of several lawsuits that were brought that said, all right, well, we're not just suing on behalf of ourselves. In this case, it was brought by an immigrant parent and on behalf of herself, all parents and babies who were born. But we're also going to sue on behalf of everyone in the whole class who could be affected nationwide.
But Eaton says the other suits could create a clash between the circuit courts.
That dispute has to be resolved by the U.S. Supreme Court. That's the bread and butter of the U.S. Supreme Court's docket, resolving conflicts among the lower federal courts of appeal.
Eaton thinks the focus going forward will be on the merits of the birthright citizenship executive order.
Whether that executive order is consistent with the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. That's an open question as far as the Supreme Court is concerned.
If the courts don't block the executive order, it could go into effect by the end of this month. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Weather headlines as we head into the weekend. I'm going to be tracking sunny skies, mild conditions, a lot hotter across the interior, but overall great weather here as we head throughout both your Saturday and Sunday. But I'm also going to be tracking another chance of rain. It's going to be a low chance, but it is going to be on that extended forecast. I'll detail that outlook coming up.
San Diego County's Democratic House members reintroduced a bill today that aims to streamline the federal government's response to cross-border sewage pollution. If passed, the bill would put the Environmental Protection Agency in charge of coordinating all projects to address infrastructure and pollution issues in the Tijuana and New River watersheds. The lawmakers say the key components of the bill follow recommendations from a 2020 report from the Government Accountability Office. They first introduced the bill last September. A new community health survey from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention shows that sewage pollution from the Tijuana River isn't just closing beaches. It is impacting the daily lives of people who live, work, and go to school in San Diego's South Bay. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco has more on what it found.
More than 2,000 people completed the online survey. 64% of participants reported new or worsening physical symptoms in the last 30 days, like coughing and congestion. These are symptoms they believe are tied to the ongoing sewage crisis. 65% said it's also affecting their mental health.
Our healthcare community in South County needs to know that, many of the residents are impacted by the Tijuana River, and they need to have a lower threshold when talking to their patients around, looking for things like depression, anxiety, headaches, respiratory symptoms, things that came out from these findings.
The county says this is its only active local emergency. They say they're working with partners to expand community outreach, educate the public about tap water safety, and promote mental health resources like the 988 crisis line. Residents in eligible zip codes are also encouraged to use free air filters. Officials say the survey results will help push for more coordinated action with state and federal agencies and long overdue solutions. From the newsroom, Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Officials are seeking public input on their next transportation plan for San Diego County. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the planning agency SANDAG got an earful at a community workshop this week.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, highway expansion's got to go.
A small group of activists rallied outside the SANDAG workshop in City Heights Thursday evening. Among them was Casey Gupta, executive director of the People's Platform San Diego, a youth-led movement to tackle climate change by investing in public transit. He says SANDAG's draft transportation plan spends too much money studying highway projects that are unfunded and may never actually get built. He's also disappointed several rail projects have been downgraded to rapid bus lines, which he says aren't always that rapid.
Right here is the Rapid 215, and when SANDAG constructed it, they promised us all-door boarding, dedicated bus lanes, and a service much faster than the 15 that it replaced. What we got was a route no faster than the route it replaced. San Diego City had to pay for the bus lanes, and we never got all-door boarding. So SANDAG has promised us a lot in the past, but they haven't delivered on their promises.
While SANDAG is planning new express lanes on several freeways, the agency says it's actually the smallest package of highway projects they've ever proposed. Part of the reason is slower population growth.
We also want to have this plan be a little bit more affordable. We heard from our board, we heard from the public that they wanted the costs to come down for the plan. So we tried to really optimize our existing infrastructure to the best that we could.
SANDAG is accepting comments on its draft regional transportation plan through July 18th. The agency has to officially adopt the plan by the end of the year. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
These days, we hear a lot about the United States crossing the Rubicon from democracy to authoritarianism. But where are we on the trajectory? KPBS's Amita Sharma spoke with people who study government and the law about the red lines they believe have been blurred or even broken. And she joins me now. Amita, welcome.
Oh, it's good to be with you, Maya.
So tell me, where does Congress's passage of the budget bill this month fit into the conversation about American democracy?
Maya, if you measure the strength of a democracy by its ability to act on the needs, the interests, and the wishes of its people, this bill fits right in. A slim majority of Americans opposed the bill. It cuts $1 trillion from Medicaid. It's projected that upwards of 12 million people will lose their health insurance. Millions more stand to lose food stamps. In San Diego County, that comes out to about 100,000 people ending up uninsured, 60,000 people without food stamps. At the same time, the bill provides trillions of dollars in tax cuts, largely to the wealthy. Here is Democratic San Diego Congressman Juan Vargas, who voted against the bill.
People are beginning to understand what this is and what it represents. Really, it's really one of the largest thefts of taking money from people that are marginalized and giving it to people that don't need it. I mean, that's not good for democracy, and that's against really we the people.
San Diego Republican Congressman Darrell Issa says the legislation will drive the economy, advance national security, and put money back into the pockets of the American people. Universities, including UC San Diego, have repeatedly taken it on the chin under the Trump administration on funding what to research, what to teach, who to hire, and whether to admit foreign students. And that impacts democracy. American universities are platforms for exposure to diverse perspectives and ideas, discovery, and innovation that have enriched the country. Democracy cornerstones. UCSD political science professor emeritus Sam Popkin says the U.S. simply does not produce enough chemists, physicists, and other scientists to fill research demands without graduate students from other countries. He says he's stumped by the administration's actions towards universities, combined with the shutdown of most USAID programs, which is predicted to cost millions of lives worldwide.
I never thought we would go so low in some of these areas, but it doesn't mean we're not a democracy. The Constitution doesn't say we have to be generous. The Constitution doesn't say we have to really love all our neighbors.
Courts have acted as a backstop on some of President Trump's executive orders seen as overreach. Lower courts have blocked President Trump's freezing federal grants, limiting union bargaining rights, and targeting law firms that have clients who've challenged the administration. But the wings of lower courts have been clipped by the Supreme Court's recent ruling, blocking a single district court judge's power to stop enforcement of a federal policy deemed unlawful nationwide. Local legal analyst Harry Littman says that decision puts the U.S. in an even more of a precarious moment.
Congress ain't doing anything, and the executive is willing to do crazy stuff. You put that all together, you take the number one force for democracy, for the rule of law, for decency that's been operative over the last 5 months, and you take it out of commission. You take the star player off the field, as it were.
Some political scientists believe the country has already slid into a form of authoritarianism. The military has been deployed in L.A. in the face of protests over ICE raids. Politicians have been detained or arrested. Media and law firms have been targeted. The Supreme Court has okayed deporting migrants to third countries like Sudan without exhausting legal remedies first. All of that notwithstanding, Congressman Vargas describes what his red line is.
When Americans look at this immigrant woman who, yes, she's here without documents, but she has 3 children, and they have 4 men attack her with machine guns, holding machine guns, throw her to the ground, put her arms behind her, shackle her up as she's crying for her children. And Americans said, that's great. That's what we want in our country. That's when we cross the Rubicon.
And Maya, Vargas says, so far, the American people look at those scenes, they watch those scenes with terror and disgust. And he says, ultimately, it will be the Americans who course correct the democracy ship, but he worries that there will be much more misery before that actually happens.
Gosh, I hate to hear that, but thank you so very much for your reporting, Amitha. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya.
And this story is part of our Public Matters initiative. You can learn more about it on our website at kpbs.org/publicmatters.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, why it's been so difficult to curb the surge in measles cases. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
For the first time in recent years, Escandido is projecting a budget surplus. It's $7 million, and the city says it's because of a voter-approved sales tax increase. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Wynn looks into what it means for the city's finances.
Despite the heat, Grand Avenue in downtown Escandido is bustling with activities during lunchtime. That's good news for Julian Lapix, the manager at Upper East on Grand.
Yeah, it just feels good. It feels good to be one of the maybe newer places that's opened.
The restaurant and bar opened roughly 7 weeks ago in this historic district. But several weeks ago, it looked like this: construction, street closures, and empty storefronts. But now, one of downtown Escandido's busiest streets looks like this.
I think Grand is like one of the next streets, so it's one of the next entertainment districts that's kind of getting developed. I think it was good that we put our restaurant here just because we did need something here on Grand in general.
The city widened sidewalks, added new parking and roundabouts, and expanded outdoor dining areas.
Yeah, the recent reopening of Grand was a significant milestone.
Grand revitalization is one of the reasons why Escandido is seeing a budget surplus this fiscal year.
We expect any increase in economic activity will also increase some sales tax revenue.
Christina Holmes is Escandido's finance director. She says the biggest jolt to the city's budget comes from Measure I, the 1-cent sales tax increase passed by voters last fall. The tax was expected to bring $28 million, but an increase in economic activities changed the math.
We anticipate receiving about the $38 million. That updated projection also reflects the strong economic growth that the city has experienced over the last few years.
Money from Measure I is putting Escandido's financials on much better footing, but that does not mean the city's structural deficit problem is solved.
Measure I was adopted with a 20-year sunset clause, meaning that unless voters approve to extend the tax, it will end after 20 years. So when that revenue ends in 20 years and without any other substantial change to the city's structure, the city will be back with a structural budget deficit.
For now, the city is investing the surplus into much-needed infrastructure improvements that have been on the city's deferred maintenance list.
Roof repairs and other building repairs. Measure I funds were also allocated to replace critical police and fire vehicles.
For Lapix, Grand Avenue is certainly the right place for the new eatery.
It definitely adds a lot more foot traffic. It's a little bit easier to kind of get here, find a place to park, and walk, up and down the street.
In Escandido, Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
President Trump's big, beautiful bill aimed to fulfill a campaign promise he made to workers last fall, but no tax on tips or overtime is more complicated than the shorthand implies. Karen Kafa is in Washington with a breakdown of who qualifies and when.
The White House says that with the signing of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act on July 4th, the president fulfilled a campaign promise of no taxes on tips or overtime. But tax experts say workers won't feel relief in their next paycheck. Employers will still withhold federal taxes from tips and overtime through the end of 2025. Instead, eligible workers will have to wait until next tax season for either a bigger refund or a reduced tax payment.
There's no benefit right now. It's going to be when they file their tax return, and then do they meet the criteria? Do they have support?
Tom O'Sabin of the National Association of Tax Professionals says that tax professionals are still seeking clarity from the IRS in some areas of the new law, like specifics on eligible workers. What they do know is that workers in jobs that traditionally receive tips will be able to deduct up to $25,000 in tip income from their federal income taxes on their 2025 tax return. And workers who receive overtime could deduct up to $12,500 of that extra pay. Income limits will apply, and the tax break is temporary through the end of 2028. O'Sabin says the changes make it even more important for workers to track their tips.
Documentation becomes even more important. Otherwise, the deduction won't apply because it could be challenged by IRS and disallowed.
And the new federal law doesn't change tax law for individual states. State income taxes still apply to both tips and overtime. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
As we head into tonight, I will be tracking low clouds near the coast. Overnight temperatures will once again be in the mid-60s. Temperature-wise, not a whole lot of variance here over the next couple of days. We'll see overnight lows a mix of 50s and 60s. Pretty mild along the coastlines with early morning cloud coverage. But along the interior, we'll see a mix of 50s, even some 60s and even some 70s there in the desert areas. But overall, future track radar is showing that as we head into early parts of your Friday morning, there will be some coastal fog, some coastal clouds there to contend with, but by about 9 a.m. the clouds should slowly start to let up, and then by about midday to late afternoon we're going to start to see a lot more sunshine here in the forecast. Overall, really nice weather here continuing as we head throughout Friday, even as we head into Saturday with things really starting to warm up along the interior. Here's the overall setup of what we're tracking across the southwest for Friday afternoon. This area of high pressure is going to keep things cooking here along the interior, but for the coastal regions we'll see see pretty moderate conditions continuing here as we head throughout not only Friday, but Saturday's looking pretty nice as well. So we'll be watching out for that trend. Temperature-wise here for your Friday afternoon, we'll be seeing a mix primarily of 70s along the coastal areas. It gets warmer the farther along the interior you get. We'll see 80s, 90s, even some triple digits. Borrego Springs are getting up to 110. So very intense heat there for some of the desert areas. But Saturday is going to be a lot warmer, a lot hotter than what we're tracking here for your Friday afternoon. So it looks like we're going to see warming conditions as we head into the weekend. Overall here for that coast forecast here, your extended outlook, we'll see lots of sunshine. Temperatures will maintain in the mid-70s. Overnight lows will maintain in the low 60s. Inland forecast is where things really warm up here as we head into the weekend. Temperatures in the mid-80s. We'll dip in the low 80s here as we head into early parts of next week. Across the mountains, we'll see temperatures starting to taper off in the mid-70s by the weekend. And across the desert, staying well into the triple digits with lows in the 70s.
Have you listened to The Finest? The KPBS podcast captures the people, the arts, and movements redefining our region's cultural identity. A new episode is out today, and you can listen now at kpbs.org/thefinest or wherever you get your podcasts. Of all of the museums you can go to in San Diego, there is one that is absolutely unique and doesn't get a lot of notice. It took years of passionate work by a few dedicated volunteers, and as Ken Kramer shows us, the result is something remarkable about San Diego.
In Ramona on Montecito Road west of town, there are a couple of aircraft to let you know you've arrived. And just beyond is a hangar where inside for a few hours, 3 days a week, the museum is open. A museum completely devoted to and absolutely jammed full of helicopters. Talk about flying under the radar. How is it that this place has gotten so little attention? It's free to come in. You never saw so many helicopters in your life. The volunteers here, like Howard Northrup, just love it.
We just want to be the best we can. There's only like 5 helicopter museums in the world.
Since it was founded by helicopter builder and pilot Mark DeSiero in 1992, Classic Rotors Rotorcraft Museum, it's called, through donations, has kept adding and displaying more helicopters.
The range goes from little tiny ones that you can basically sit on with a little tiny gas-powered motor on the back, and it flies as a helicopter.
He means really little ones, like this one here. You go back to the 1950s and 60s, and magazines like Popular Mechanics or Mechanics Illustrated.
In the back of those magazines was a classified section, and that classified article said, send $5 for plans to build your own helicopter.
If you followed the instructions and actually built one, it required a motorcycle engine, like from a Triumph 650, and a gear shift lever and a clutch, just like a motorcycle. So you'd go out to the airfield, kick-start it, and slowly shift through the gears to get the rotor turning. And if you were really skilled, you could get it off the ground. So there must have been a lot of them buzzing around, right? Only cost $5 for the plans.
They sold thousands of them, $5 a pop, there was no problem. But actually, there was only 8 of them that were finally built.
8. This one at the museum is number 2. Same thing, you might remember ads for the Benson Build-It-Yourself gyrocopter. Here's one that holds the record for the longest gyrocopter flight. Refueling in air, it went 16 hours. So yes, they do have very small helicopters, on up in size.
To the largest, which was a large H-37, which is the only one of 6 that are left in the world.
Presenting the Marines' brand new transport helicopter powered by twin engines. 26 fully equipped Marines can get aboard.
Somehow they squeezed one of the last surviving Army versions of this gigantic helicopter in here, and it is massive. And oh, here's one tucked away here in the corner. This is what was called the Monty Copter, named for the designer's son, Monty. It's the only helicopter of its kind, a trifibian.
In the 1950s, everybody was going to have a car that they basically drove out of their driveway, got onto the highway, and took off and flew.
Yes, but the Monty Copter did that concept one better because it could go anywhere, land, air, or into a lake or the ocean, whatever. It was a watercraft too. Only problem, in traffic, the blast from the engine kind of toasted whoever was behind you, and it got 2.3 miles to the gallon. But today, here sits the only Monty Copter ever concocted. There's so much history here, and everywhere you look, the story of some effort to lift off vertically, better and more efficiently. Some were experimental. Remember that aircraft we saw outside? That was a prototype that, if developed, would lift off from a very small space and then fly away. Tested at Gillespie Field years ago, it too is here now with its giant cousins, with the products of dreamers and engineers in war and peacetime.
We kept collecting more and more, and then pretty soon just preserving helicopter history was sort of our goal and objective.
And finally, in a side room is the most extraordinary collection of model helicopters of every size and description. Some that must be one of a kind, some models of Russian rotorcraft, so many, so lovingly assembled and displayed. Taken together, for pilots, for many who served in the military, some of these helicopters will be familiar. But for anyone who hears them flying by, and you just look up, you know, it's an instinct, this is an up-close look at decades of rotorcraft development and preservation by some truly dedicated volunteers. On Montecito Road at the Ramona Airport is Classic Rotors Museum, a classic place indeed about San Diego.
Ken Kramer has a half hour of stories every week about San Diego, which you can see on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock right here on KPBS. Here is a look at what we have for you for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. More American college students now learn online than attend in person. NPR's Morning Edition has more on what's behind the trend and what it means for access to higher education. And we're almost at the halfway point of the MLB season. KPBS Roundtable is bringing together local sports journalists to talk about where the Padres stand now and their predictions for the future. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Travolsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.